Most people already know what they need to do to improve their life. They know they should work out. They know they should stop scrolling so much. They know they should develop new skills. They know they should make that phone call. They know they should start the project they've been thinking about for months. So the real problem isn't information. The real problem is execution. Because knowing what to do and actually doing it are two very different things. And if you're honest with yourself, there are probably several things in your life right now where you already know the answer. You know what the right move is. You know what the better decision would be. You know what action would move your life forward, but you're not doing it. Not consistently. And most people assume the reason for that is discipline. They think the problem is willpower. They think the problem is motivation. But the real reason people don't execute is something much simpler. They overestimate how difficult starting will be, and they underestimate how powerful starting actually is. In other words, the effort required to begin something almost always feels bigger in your mind than it actually is in reality. And that mental gap between perceived effort and real effort is where most people get stuck. Take something simple, like going to the gym. Most people don't avoid the gym because they don't know it's good for them. Everyone understands that exercise improves their health. Everyone understands that being physically strong improves energy, confidence, and longevity. There's no mystery there. But knowing that doesn't automatically create action, because the brain does something interesting when it thinks about starting something difficult. It simulates the entire effort. You don't just imagine putting on your shoes. Your brain imagines the entire workout, the sweat, the fatigue, the discomfort, the time commitment, the soreness tomorrow, and because the brain compresses that entire experience into a single moment of anticipation, the effort feels enormous. So instead of thinking, I just need to start, you think, that's going to be exhausting. But once you actually start, something different happens. The effort becomes manageable. The first 5 minutes of a workout are rarely the hardest part. The hardest part is getting in the car. The hardest part is putting on your shoes. The hardest part is walking through the door. Because starting breaks the illusion. And once the illusion is broken, execution becomes much easier. This is something I've experienced myself recently. There are times when I know exactly what I should be doing, getting into the gym consistently, building the routine back up. But the mental resistance before starting feels bigger than the reality of the workout itself. You think about the entire process. You imagine how tired you might feel. You imagine how long it's going to take, and that anticipation creates friction. But every single time you actually start, the same realization happens. It wasn't nearly as difficult as you thought. The barrier was mental, not physical. This pattern shows up in almost every area of life. Starting a new skill, learning something complex, making a difficult phone call, beginning a project, having an uncomfortable conversation. The brain exaggerates the cost of starting, and when that perceived cost becomes large enough, the brain looks for something easier, something more comfortable. Scrolling, watching videos, checking email, doing low-effort tasks that feel productive, but don't actually move anything forward, and slowly, execution gets replaced by intention. People start collecting ideas instead of actions. They read books, they watch videos, they listen to podcasts, they learn frameworks, they absorb strategies. But their life doesn't change, because ideas alone don't produce results. Execution does. Ideas are potential. Execution is reality. And the uncomfortable truth most people avoid confronting is this. Ideas are worthless without execution. You can have the best ideas in the world. You can understand the exact strategy required to improve your life. You can know the steps, you can know the habits, you can know the systems, but if execution never happens, none of that knowledge matters. A simple plan, executed consistently, will outperform a brilliant idea that never leaves your head. That's why the people who actually change their lives are rarely the ones with the most information. They're the ones who close the gap between knowing and doing. They start, even when the effort feels uncomfortable, even when motivation isn't there, even when the conditions aren't perfect, because they understand something that most people miss. Action reduces resistance. Thinking increases it. The more time you spend thinking about something, the larger the obstacle becomes in your mind. But once you begin, the resistance shrinks, and the longer you wait, the harder starting becomes. Because delay creates a new problem. Delay creates identity conflict. Every time you say you're going to do something and then don't do it, your brain registers that inconsistency. You start seeing yourself as someone who intends to act rather than someone who executes. And once that identity forms, starting becomes even harder. Because now you're not just overcoming effort, you're overcoming self-doubt. This is why systems matter so much. Motivation is unreliable. But systems remove the constant negotiation with yourself. Instead of asking every day whether you're going to take action, the system already decided that question. You don't debate whether you're going to brush your teeth every morning. The decision was made long ago. Execution becomes automatic because the structure already exists. The same principle can apply to almost any area of life. Work, fitness, skill development, productivity. Once a system exists, starting becomes easier because the decision is no longer emotional, it's structural. That's why one of the most powerful changes you can make is shifting your focus away from motivation and towards systems. Instead of asking yourself how to stay motivated, ask yourself how to make starting easier, reduce friction, remove unnecessary steps. Design your environment to support action, because the simpler it is to start, the more likely you are to execute. And the more often you execute, the smaller the gap becomes between knowing and doing. This is exactly why I built something called the Weekly OS. It's a simple system I use to structure each week, so that execution doesn't depend on motivation. Instead of waking up every day wondering what I should be doing, the priorities are already defined. The actions that move things forward are already clear. The structure already exists. So instead of negotiating with myself every morning, I just execute the system. If you want to try that framework for yourself, I've made the template available for free. You can download it using the link in the description. It's a simple way to plan your week intentionally instead of drifting through it. And drifting is what usually happens when execution is missing. Because when people stop executing, they don't usually notice it immediately. They keep thinking about the things they should do. They keep collecting ideas. They keep telling themselves they'll start soon. But the longer execution is delayed, the further their life drifts from the direction they originally intended. Which is why the most important skill you can develop isn't intelligence. It isn't creativity. It isn't even discipline in the traditional sense. The most important skill is the ability to start, to take action even when the effort feels uncomfortable, to move even when motivation is absent. Because starting is what transforms knowledge into progress. And once you begin, momentum takes over. If this video made you think about something you've been putting off, do something simple. Don't overthink it. Don't plan the entire process. Just start. Take the smallest step that moves you forward. Because execution doesn't require perfect conditions. It just requires a decision. And if you found this video helpful, hit the like button so the algorithm shows it to more people who might need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel if you're interested in building discipline, systems, and long-term leverage, instead of just collecting ideas. Because knowing what to do is common. Executing on it is rare. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.